Hi everyone, in this video we're going to solve the exercises from 7 to 11 of chapter 6, Supply, Demand and Government Policies. This is a book of Gregory Mankiw, Principles of Economics. So the 7th exercise says that Congress and the President decide that the United States should reduce air pollution by reducing its use of gasoline. They impose a 50 cents tax for each gallon of gasoline sold. A. Should they impose this tax on producers or consumers? Explain carefully using a supply and demand diagram. So here we have the market of gasoline. So here we have the price and quantities. Here we have the initial. This is the initial condition where we have this price and equilibrium. So given the tax, the consumers, they have to pay more. So remember, when they have to pay more, because of the law of demand, they're going to consume less. So in this case, we have here that this is going to be the quantities that the consumers they are going to consume after the tax, and the price, this P2, this is going to be what the sellers they are going to receive. Remember, this Q1 was the initial one. Now with the tax, the market is going just to be sold these quantities less than the original. The price that the sellers are going to receive is P2, and this P3 is the price that is going to be charged for the consumers, and the distance P3 minus P2 is given by the 50 cents tax. What about if the Congress and the President they tax the other side, the supply? So in this case, this is going to be this case, because the initial was the supply, and there's going to be they have to pay the sellers, so the supply are going to be affected. So remember, when something affects the supply, it goes to shift to the left. So this is going to be the case. So here we have that the price, the P3, is the quantity of money that the demand have to pay, but this money is not taken but completely 100% by the supply, because they have to give the difference from P3 to P2. So this is going to be P2 is going to be the money that they're going to receive. So the conclusion is it is the same. So it doesn't matter if you charge the consumer or the seller, because this is going to be reflected at the same time. They're going to divide, split, burden the tax. If the demand for gasoline were more elastic, would this tax be more effective in reducing the quantity of gasoline consumed? Explain with both words and diagram. So here, remember, we have the first case when we have the demand, and here we have the situation, right? What about if the demand is more elastic? So here we have here this, which is like clearly more elastic than the other curve. So in this case, we have the demand is going to shift down to D2, and this is going to be, this P2 is going to be the money that the sellers they are going to receive, but the quantities that they're going to be reduced from Q1 to Q2, and the price that they're going to be charged for the consumers is going to be P3, and the difference P3 and P2. And you see here that the distance here is lower than the distance from P1 to P2. So what does it mean? It means that even the tax is going to be split between consumers and supply, the consumers and sellers. This is going to be heavily, like there's going to be more tax for the supply, because they are just going to receive this. The difference is going to be larger, P1 minus P2 than P1 from P3. It means that if the demand, so the curve which is more elastic, it's going to suffer less the tax. So in this case, the question is, would this tax be more effective in reducing the quantity? Yes, because given the elasticity, they are more sensitive of changes in the price. So in this case, it's going to be reduced from Q1 to Q2, which is larger than the change that they have before. So this is more effective, definitely. So consumers of gasoline helped or hurt by this tax? Well, obviously they are hurt. They they are hurt because they have to pay more for the gasoline. So they will be definitely less. They will be definitely worse. In the other case, are workers in all industry helped or hurt by this tax? Why? So it's going to be the same case. It's going to be less price, so they're going to receive less money. So they don't need the same quantity of inputs. In this case, labor. In this case, workers. So they're going to be hurt. It's going to be less people hired because of the tax. 8. Case study in this chapter discusses the federal minimum wage law. A. Suppose the minimum wage is the market for unskilled labor. Using a supply and demand diagram of the market for unskilled labor, show the market wage, the number of workers who are employed, and the number of workers who are unemployed. Also show the total wage payments to unskilled workers. So here we have the labor market. Instead of price, we have here wage. Okay, so this is going to be the case. So here we have the wage instead of price and workers instead of the quantity. So here we have the demand, and in this case we have this is the equilibrium, and here is the minimum wage. So this is called a surplus. So this is called unemployment, because the enterprises, they are just have this position for hiring this quantity of people at this wage, but at the same time the supply, which is the unskilled workers, they at this price they are like disposed to receive this wage. So it's going to be like larger than the enterprise. They're going to be like disposed to hire. So this is the case. So here we have the LD, which is the demand, the quantity which is effective demand by the enterprises. On the other side is why they are willing to offer to the market. This is the LS, and this L1 was the initial case. So the question was, okay, we already have the market wage, the numbers of workers who are employed are LD, and the numbers of workers who are unemployed, LS, less subtract LD. Also show the total wage payment to unskilled workers. So the total payment is W minimum times LD. This is going to be the square. This is going to be the total payment. Okay, so B. Now suppose the Secretary of Labor proposes an increase half in the minimum wage. What effect would this increase have on employment? Does the change in employment depend on the elasticity of demand, the elasticity of supply, both elasticities, or neither? So here we have the initial case, that we had before. So imagine that is going to be an increase in the minimum wage. So it's going to be W prime. So what happened here? You see that the employees, like they are hired, is much less from LD to L prime D. On the other case, we have the L prime S, which is going to people that they desire to work at this wage. They are much higher because of the wage. They have a lot of incentives to work. So the question is, so the more elastic, the more unemployment. Why? Because this is going to be more distance. Remember, when it's more elastic, the curves, they are definitely more lie down. So in this case, the more elastic, the more unemployment, because it's going to be a more distance between these two. Remember that employment is measured by the difference between the labor supply minus the labor demand. Okay, so the C point asks about the what effect this increase in the minimum wage have on unemployment. Does the charge in employment depend on the elasticity of demand, the elasticity of supply, both elasticities, or neither? So now I'm going to put the examples, supposing that here, okay, here was the case that we already showed. Okay, so now here is the case when their demand is much more inelastic. So in this case, where it's more inelastic, the minimum wage and the increase in the minimum wage, what you see here is interesting, because we see here first that the demand changed a lot in the price, I mean in the wage, but it has like little changes in the workers. It's not like a big issue in there's not gonna be like less people employee, not too much. So this is going to be given that by that. So why we have higher payments? Because remember, we have here the initial case where the total payments for unskilled workers was W1 times L1. So it's going to be this all this square. But with the first minimum wage increase, we have, instead of L1, we have LD, and instead of with W1, we have W1 mean. W mean minimum. So this is going to be the increase. So the total payment increase because this portion that is gained is larger than this little one that we have like worse. We have just like lost. In this case, with the next W prime minimum, we have here, this is going to be the money, the price, the salary that the workers they are going to receive, which is higher, and this again earned this part and we just lost this one. So it means that they are higher payments. In the other case, when we have a demand which is more elastic, you see here that, remember, when it's elastic in some good, we have the case that when we increase the price, we receive less when it is elastic. It means the proportionally change in the price is less than the loss we have because of in the quantities. What I mean, for example, this was the initial case with the minimum wage. It is this one. So with the change, we have this one. So if you notice, this little portion here that we earn more as a total payment is less than this total square that we have lost because of the increase in the minimum wage. So this is the point. So it's going to be, in this case, decreased payment. Sorry for the E here. It's going to be decreased payment as the total wage payments. 9 point. Consider the following policies, each of which is aimed at reducing violent crime by reducing by reducing the use of guns. Illustrate each of these proposed policies in a supply and demand diagram of the gun market. A. Attacks on gun buyers. So remember, when we are talking about the buyers, it's going to be the demand, so it's going to be a decrease of the demand. So instead of paying P1, they have to pay, they are going to pay P3, and the suppliers, the sellers, instead of receiving P1, they are going to receive P2, and the payment, the tax is going to be given by P3 minus p2. Okay, so what about if in the suppliers, in the supply part, it's going to be again similar case. They're going to receive just p2, the supply, and the demand, the consumer, they have to pay p3, and the difference tax is going to be p3 minus p2. Okay, now the next price floor guns. So when we fix up price flooring guns, remember in this case it's binding. So when it has effect is in the the minimum wage is going to be above the minimum, the equilibrium price. So this is going to be the surplus. So this is an effect of the gun. So we have the reductions from Q1 to QD, and this is going to be a surplus because at this price the sellers, they desire to sell QS, but they just have QD. The quantity of gun we have here, in this case the tax on ammunition. So remember, ammunition, it could be like a complement of this good. So in this case, when there is a tax in the complement, there's going to be a decrease in the consumer of ammunition. So because of their complement, you don't need guns without ammunitions. Okay, so the demand of guns is going to shift to down. So in this case, it's going to be a decrease in the prices and decrease in quantities. Okay, the next point. The US government administers two programs that affect the market for cigarettes. Media campaigns and labeling requirements are aimed at making the public aware of the dangers of cigarette smoking. At the same time, the Department of Agriculture maintains a price support program for tobacco farmers, which raises the price of tobacco above the equilibrium price. How do these two programs affect cigarette consumption? Use use a graph of cigarette market in your answer. So here we have the first case. Remember, we have here there is a media campaign labeling requirements that they are saying to people this is so bad smoking. So in this case, people change a little bit their tastes, so the demand is going to shift down, it's going to decrease. So it's going to be a decrease in prices and decrease in quantities. On the other side, when we have the the support program for tobacco farmers, so which raises the price of tobacco, so they establish a minimum price, which is a price floor. So in this case, it's going to be a surplus because it's going to reduce the quantities, but it depends on the demand, if it's inelastic or elastic. And in this case, they want to receive more or less depending of the curve demand. Remember, if it's elastic, it's bad to charge a higher price, but as usual, demand for cigarettes is high. I mean, it's inelastic. So in this case, it's better for the suppliers, because they're going to receive more given the elasticity of demand. What is the effect of these two programs on the price of cigarettes? So in this case, we have here the initial case. There is a minimum price, okay, but at the same time there is the demand. So what is the effect combined these two? Side we have the increase of minimum price, but because of the bad campaign, we're saying people is so bad, it's so bad smoking. So in this case, the quantities, they're going to be less. So in this case, it's going to be even more decreasing in quantities, and the price is going to be at this one. Okay, so it's going to be the effect, a big surplus, because at this price, they're willing, the suppliers, to offer that, but they're going to be just demanded this one instead of this one because of the campaign as well. Also heavily taxed. What effect does this tax have on cigarette consumption? So here is the, forget these guns, is cigarettes. So here, remember, we have decrease in demand. So in this case they have to pay P3 instead of P1, and sellers, they're going to receive P2, and the difference P3 minus P2 is going to be the tax. So there's going to be a decrease in the consumption of cigarettes. Last point, a subsidy in the opposite is the opposite of a tax. With a 50 cents tax on the buyers of ice cream cones, the government collects 50 cents for each cone purchased. With a 50-cent subsidy for the buyers of the ice cream cones, the government pays buyers 50 cents for each cone purchased. Show the effect of a 50 cents per cone subsidy on the demand curve for ice cream cones, the effective price received by sellers, and the quantity of cones sold. So here we have the ice cream. The initial case, we have the price and quantities of equilibrium. So here is a subsidy. So it's better for the demand. It's going to be shift to the right. So in this case, it's going to be, it's not automatic. Don't pay attention to that. I just copy paste, but I forgot to cancel it out. So here is going to be the price that the demand they're going to pay is going to be P3, which is less than P1. And P2 is going to be the effective price received by the sellers, which is going to be P3 plus 50 cents. So it's going to be P2. P3 the price paid by buyers, and Q2 is going to be the quantities of cones sold. Okay, that's pretty much all. I hope it has worked for you. Have a great success with economics, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.